Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be looking at those top transfers going into game week 8. So whether you're on the wildcard right now or you're simply looking to use your free transfers going into this weekend, this video is going to be for you. So as always, if you are looking forward to this video, make sure you do drop a like and of course subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay, so first up, I thought it would be a really good opportunity to take a look at those Spurs fullbacks going into what is quite a nice run of fixtures for Tottenham. Now, just to remind us, away against Luton and Fulham at home in the next two fixtures for Spurs just look fantastic and a brilliant entry point for anybody that doesn't currently have any Spurs investment, whether that be defensively or offensively. Now, as a team in general for Spurs, they haven't been watertight defensively, but what they have offered is attacking fullbacks in this Ange Postecoglou system. And both Udogie and Pedro Porro are the standout options in this team. I know Romero has got a few goals already this season, but realistically, I think I'd rather be buying the fullbacks than the centre-backs in this Spurs team. So Udogie currently at 4.8 million and Pedro Porro at 5 million. It's worth noting, as of the recording right now, Udogie is the more popular pick from an ownership perspective because he was so popular in pre-season at that 4.5 million price range, and he's only increased as the game weeks have gone by. But I think it's Pedro Porro, which is the one that's really caught my eye during the opening 7 game weeks. So you can see on his XG per 90 at 0.07 and his expected assists at 0.23 per 90. He's really stepped up in this Spurs team where originally we thought he might get rotated with Emerson Royale. He's become a mainstay as the right back in this system and offering real attacking threat. Now, when we compare that to Udogie, Udogie is slightly less, 0.05 XG per 90. It's worth noting neither have significant expected goals per 90, but the expected assists is also quite close at 0.19 per 90. Now, the thing that I did notice in underlying numbers, which is quite standout, is the shots per 90 for both of these players. Udogie only at 0.15 per 90, but Pedro Porro at 1.51 per 90 is really standing out to me in terms of the defenders across the course of the game. And at 1.51 per 90, I think that's a really good indicator here that he is definitely the more attacking option in this system in a Spurs shirt. Now, expected FPL points per 90 at 4.88 each. Really unlikely to have both exactly the same, but it is what it is. And looking at the predicted points for the next 4 fixtures, it's actually Udogie that leads the way at 15.2 compared to Pedro Porro's 14.5. So, right now, if I was in the market for a Spurs defender and budget was no option, I would go for Pedro Porro. He's more of the attacking threat. He's guaranteed minutes. As I said, the fixtures are good for both of these players. But importantly, he's the lower owned player. So you get that slight bit of differential edge to what a lot of managers have in the shape of Udogie. Now, of course, if you have Udogie right now, you keep him. And if you don't have the funds available for Pedro Porro, I still think purchasing Udogie is a good buy for your FPL teams. Yes, Chelsea at home in 4 game weeks time might not be the best, but the 3 before that I actually think are really good value, and you haven't missed the boat so far on those Spurs defenders. So those are the Spurs defenders covered off. Let's move on to the highest scoring player in the game so far this season. And of course, I'm talking about Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins, who has been a little bit light on goals so far this season, but completely hit the ground running in game week 7 with that hat-trick against Brighton, is now the highest scoring forward in the game, more than Haaland, more than Alvarez. And at 8 million, we just ask ourselves, why didn't we simply just put Watkins in from the start, knowing that he's going to play pretty much every minute in the Unai Emery system, be the main man? Yes, he isn't on penalties, but we're looking at the underlying numbers here. They're really solid. XG per 90 at 0.6. And again, these are non-pen numbers because Douglas Luiz is the designated penalty taker in this Aston Villa team. And expected assists of 0.25 per 90 are just unbelievable numbers for any forward in the game, especially someone like Ollie Watkins, who we just know is going to play pretty much every minute in an Aston Villa shirt. Now, the big chances per 90 at 0.91 is actually decent reading. For someone like Ollie Watkins, this is kind of what I would expect. Now, of course, anything over 1 is a bonus, but I've seen other forwards in the game, like a Julian Alvarez, who have got significantly less big chances per 90. So this is really positive reading. And with the fixtures coming up for Ollie Watkins, Wolves away, West Ham at home, Luton at home and Forest away, it is definitely the time to get in on Ollie Watkins if you haven't already. If you're wildcarding for game week 8, I think it is a non-negotiable to have Watkins in your team. I get the temptation of Darwin Núñez and Alvarez, but for me, I'd rather go for the more expensive option in Ollie Watkins, knowing that his numbers are amazing and Aston Villa's fixtures are brilliant. And also, then you have the luxury to maybe come down from Ollie Watkins to a Darwin Núñez if you really want to go chasing that high upside pick. The fact is, if you go without Watkins in a wildcard pick, then you're going to have some funds available to upgrade your other forward of choice into him. And I don't think we need to overthink it. Guaranteed game time, unbelievable numbers, great fixtures. Ollie Watkins is a brilliant transfer in for anybody, whether on the wild card or not. You haven't missed the boat. Yes, he won't be getting hat-tricks each and every game week, but with these numbers, I think goals and assists are going to be a consistent theme throughout each and every game week. So those are the defenders and the forward covered off. Last up, I want to cover some mid-price midfielders that I really think are important for us to consider in the game right now. Now, those three midfielders are going to be Wolves' Neto, West Ham's James Ward-Prowse and Crystal Palace's Eze. All at slightly different prices, but again, very similar price range. Now, the reason why I'm considering midfielders at this price range is because I think some FPL managers are looking at ways to maybe downgrade in other departments to afford these premium options in the game. For example, Son is on the table ahead of game week 8. And it's worth noting, I haven't included him in this top transfer video because I think he is quite an obvious transfer for our FPL teams going into game week 8. That's simply why he isn't in this video, being one of the most bought players going into this weekend. But I think a lot of managers want to save some money along the way. And maybe you're sat there with a Man United midfielder and you think to yourself, I need to downgrade him to a 6 million midfielder. Then these are the three options that I think are definitely on the top of the list. Now, first up, Neto being the cheapest at 5.6 million. He has been the standout option recently from an output perspective, really carrying this Wolves team. We saw that again in that brilliant victory at home against Man City. Now, his numbers in terms of underlying aren't the best in terms of what we're comparing in the other two options. 0.12 XG per 90 and a 0.27 expected assists per 90 aren't really standout. And the shots per 90 are okay at 1.57. And if I was to look at the fixtures for Wolves coming up, similar to the numbers, they are okay. Villa at home isn't the best and Newcastle at home equally isn't the best. But I like Bournemouth away. I like Sheffield United away. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. The one thing I do like is the tough fixtures are at home for Wolves, which always bodes well. And we saw what they've done against Man City. O'Neill doing a really good job here. And Neto, clearly the talisman in this Wolves team. He is going to play, barring injuries, every single minute for them. So I'm not against any FPL manager bringing in Neto as part of their plans. Now, James Ward-Prowse is the one going into game week 8 that has really picked up a lot of traction recently. He has been Mr. Consistent. While he's not had any hauls, he has ticked over really nicely in this West Ham team. XG per 90 at 0.31. And it's worth noting those are non-pen numbers because Paqueta is obviously the penalty taker at West Ham. He isn't the double pivot Ward-Prowse that we've known to love at Southampton. He is actually given the opportunity to really arrive late into the box and give them that attacking impetus from the midfield. So he is a different player to what we saw at Southampton. And we can see that with the numbers, especially in the expected assists as well. While the XG is very different to what we saw at Southampton, the expected assists continue to be fantastic because he remains on set pieces, corners, all the good stuff, the bread and butter that we know to love with Ward-Prowse is continuing here. So with this West Ham team with Zuma, Aged, Antonio, there's always opportunities for him to pick up assists, even if West Ham and him are playing really poorly. Now, the shots per 90, the worst of all the three, but again, I would expect that with him being, I would argue, the less attacking naturally in that system. Now, looking at the fixtures for West Ham, Newcastle at home, Villa away, Everton at home, Brentford away. I think on paper they are quite tricky, especially the next two. But the way West Ham are playing right now, I think that they are very, very strong in terms of a team. I think they're flying under the radar. The teams that they're selecting with Alvarez, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, kudos coming into this team. I think West Ham are going to put up a competition against any side. And yes, Newcastle isn't ideal, but because Ward-Prowse is one of those players that could get an assist at any point, I don't think I look at these fixtures and think there's no way of him picking up any sort of goal scoring opportunity. So I really like Ward Prowse if you want to go down that route. But the last option that I think a lot of FPL managers aren't considering because he hasn't really been delivering in the opening 7 game weeks is going to be Crystal Palace's Eze at 6.2 million. He was previously the pick that everybody wanted, and he's really fallen off the radar recently. 0.31 XG per 90 and an expected assist of 0.24 is really solid numbers. It's just because the output hasn't really been there why managers aren't considering Eze as part of their transfer plans. Shots per 90 are by far and away better than Neto and Ward Prowse at 3.87. And similar to Neto, Eze is the talisman in this Crystal Palace team. Everything flows through him. The only problem with Eze right now is the fact that we don't really know what position he's picking up. Sometimes he's having to operate on the left-hand side. Sometimes he picks up these number 10 positions. I think it's all good things. And we know that he's the penalty taker in this Crystal Palace side. But with the absence of Elise still in the team and potentially Edouard, while that might put more emphasis on Eze to be the attacking threat, I think it isn't necessarily a good thing having less creativity in the Palace team in general. So that is a slight problem with him. But over the next 4 fixtures, he is predicted to score the most points at 15.2. And I would argue he also has probably the best fixtures over the next 4. Forest at home in particular is a great entry point if you want to buy him. Newcastle away, very tricky. But then Spurs at home, who I think are a great team, but defensively not sound. And then Burnley away. So really good fixtures. And to conclude on this section, I think Ward Prowse is probably the route that a lot of managers want to go down because you have so many different avenues to points. But if I was to go in on a midfielder, I think Eze would be my man. I get it, the output hasn't been there recently, but the numbers continue to be good. And while I'm seeing these numbers, I think returns will come eventually. And I think Eze just pips it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. All 3 very popular in those Game Week 8 wildcard drafts. So that just leaves us to say, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I really hope it's provided some value on the transfers that you're planning to do ahead of Game Week 8. If you did enjoy it, please do consider smashing that like button and, of course, the subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.